So everyone, thank you for coming. This is a really cool week for me, being Global Entrepreneur Week. This country, this world would not exist without entrepreneurs. So with that said, and I'm gonna have to pivot, because Sean taught me how to use this machine with my Mac, because all this time I have not. But that's another conversation. All right, so we are going to talk about a common thread for nonprofits and for-profits called entrepreneurship. But before we get into that, I wanted to explain who I am and who I am responsible for, what I'm responsible for. So my name is Suzette Chang. I'm the founder and CEO of Thick Descriptions. Thick Descriptions, our mission is to disrupt traditional educational methods with anthropology, building stronger communities. We are committed to science empowerment and cultural intelligence. And side note, I had a cap filling, done. So this side of my face is still, it's still fine. So that's another conversation. So thick descriptions means that everything and everyone can be defined in a thick and descriptive way. So if you've heard this before, just roll with me. What did I say my name is?
Suzette.
Suzette what?
Chang.
Okay. What do I look like?
Black person.
A black person? Okay. What gender do you think I identify as?
Female.
Female, yes, I do. And what does my first name suggest?
Female.
Female. What language? What does Suzette?
American.
American? Some people would say French, and it is a French
okay.
name. What does my last name suggest?
Oriental.
Oriental, Asian, but I identify as African American. And so that's just from a visual perspective. All of us can be defined in a thick and descriptive way. And we'll talk about this in a little while. Most of us lean a lot on our visual and our cultural lenses to define what people are or what things are. And thick descriptions is saying, no, let's go a little bit deeper. All right, so today, this is the tone. This is gonna be a brave and safe space. And of course, my phone is ringing. This will be engagement, so critical thinking, non-dismissive, and conversational. It's gonna get uncomfortable, and that's okay. Kind of like what I just did of my first and last name. A lot of people don't want to deal with that, but it's the truth. And commitment is to be respectful and seek mutual understandings. All right, so entrepreneurship is a characteristic for many individuals regardless of their commitment to fill a public gap or receive private profit. Choosing to be an entrepreneur is not random. In fact, it is often influenced and guided by our cultural and socio-economic environments. It is important to understand this characteristic because our cultural lenses often overshadow our understanding of what a for-profit and nonprofit spaces. A goal for this Munch and Learn is to dismantle generational perspectives that both, meaning for-profit and not-for-profit, are not extremely different from the lens of common sense. In addition, you'll get some tools to unpack this. Okay, so being a practicing anthropologist that focuses on education for youth and adults, of course I had to talk to a few entrepreneurs and get their thoughts. And so one said, I became an entrepreneur because it's important to me to set my own goals. I am becoming self-sufficient and I can't get fired. And when he said that, I was like, no, you can't get fired, but if your company doesn't produce money, resources, you could lose your job. So no, you wouldn't get fired, but you could be without a job, but that's another conversation. I want to leave my kids something, be it they can achieve something. I am leaving them money. I am leaving them a foundation. I want to provide generational wealth. Like 50 Cent said, I'm going to get rich or die trying. Okay, So, what does entrepreneur mean to you? And I'm coming to you too.
Self-motivational business person that has an idea they can convert to monetary gain,
Okay,
maybe.
okay, okay. And why did you become an entrepreneur?
The opportunity seemed to be there to do so.
Okay. And your business is, and you have multiple, right?
Well, the one that I'm an entrepreneur in is this one.
Okay.
So.
Okay, okay. And what about you?
I would say kind of the thought process is, because I want to be self-employed. I want to have my own business and run it the way that I would like to run it. I'm not worried. I would like to make my own hours, but I also understand that I will have to put in more hours than if I possibly wasn't. But I think that the self-fulfillment and the rewards that you would get if you have a successful business and would be pretty meaningful.
Agreed, agreed. What both of you have said, I've heard that in the 7+ years of running a nonprofit, but I consider myself to be an entrepreneur as well. Because just because we don't pay taxes, and we'll talk about this, it doesn't mean that for-profit and nonprofit aren't very similar. I am starting to see the light at the tunnel, meaning working 80-hour days is not as much as it used, or weeks, excuse me, is not as much as it used to be. And so would you say that with running, after a certain point, it's not as intense?
Right.
Or the intensity shifts, where it's not so much that you're doing 80-hour weeks, you are thinking critically or developing strategic plans that requires you to pivot on what you're thinking about. Okay, so what does nonprofit mean to you?
Well, it's like you said, you don't pay taxes.
Anything else?
Usually it's a common good type of scenario.
That's what I would think. Well, obviously, you're gonna be working for a different cause, because your business isn't going to be making, I would assume, because I haven't worked for one, that your business isn't gonna be making the profit. Whatever you're working for, or cause, is what you're working to make a profit for.
Okay. And so then what does for-profit mean?
It's usually more of a financially motivated enterprise versus a cause.
Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so, and obviously, if it's your business, you're gonna make a profit.
Okay. So according to Habitat for Humanity, there are 6 differences between for and nonprofit. And excluding one, I plan on pushing against each one of their definitions or their reasoning. So funding, they say the difference is one seeks capital from the founder, bank loans, investors, and revenues generated. The other seeks donations of time, material, products, skills, and money. And I would argue that both do that.
I can see that.
Target audience, they say the difference is one establishes relationships with their audience to purchase product. The other seeks relationships with volunteers, corporate sponsors, donors, and the general public. I know several nonprofits that have a for-profit arm.
I can see that, yeah.
Management, difference, board members take stakeholders that receive incentives. The others focus on social, environmental issues and not financial factors. You can't have a business, regardless if it pays taxes or not, if you're not generating money.
Right.
Now, I would kind of pivot with this and say that for a for-profit, maybe if there are 3 commitments, maybe the first commitment is revenue, where maybe for the nonprofit, it's the second or the third. But it's in the top 3. You cannot function without money. And that old belief that a nonprofit, and we'll talk about that, is just volunteers that want to give their time. No. No. Organizational culture, differences, one values how employees can create services, products that can be monetized. The others focus on community-oriented. Employees are seen as supporting the cause. I would think the cause for both is where one might be rivets and the other might be education. They're still focused on that cause.
Right.
And taxation, this is where I do agree. One pays taxes and the other doesn't. The purpose, they said one organization is generating profits for personal fulfillment, the other is to promote social cause, and I push against that as well. Historically, when people think about, and Oklahoma and the world is quick to say we've always done this way. And so I keep saying historic, traditional, archaeological to help to remind us that although that is the past, it's not necessarily the present. Okay, so here's another entrepreneur, and this is actually me. So my parents, grandparents are members of the Great Black Migration. This means they left Jim Crow rural South for better lives. Part of the rural South is being an entrepreneur. So for me, an entrepreneur is someone providing a service and making a difference within their communities. So my family comes from a long line of seamstresses, loggers, timber cutters, teachers, doctors, ministers, so it's in my blood. And this, and I'm using air quotes, new concept that the two are more similar than different is not new for me and my family. If we saw something that needed to be done and we could make money doing it, and collectively around the world, that is becoming the belief. Which again, as I said in the beginning, I think this is really cool that we are honoring entrepreneurs around the world. Okay, so cultural lens. It's the unique perspective or filter through which an individual interprets the world based on their own cultural background. When I first started Thick Descriptions, I thought everyone thought like I did. I really thought that if you are starting a business, for profit or not, you want to make money so you can be sustainable, and you want to provide a service and or address a cause. And I learned quickly that not everyone thinks that way, and had to reflect on the understanding that just how I have my own cultural understandings or lenses, everyone else does. However, most of us don't take the time to think about how we think isn't necessarily the truth for someone else. Okay, so I said we were going to talk about common sense. Okay, how many of you were raised in communities where you were told as a kid, you just don't have any common sense? Or you heard that? Yeah. So, as a practicing anthropologist, my argument is it's not the lack of wisdom or experience, these are our common senses. Most of us, not all. Obviously, there are people that are visually impaired and hearing impaired and so on and so forth. Most of us can do these basic things. The top one, most of us, what we see is what we believe. I.e., she's a black woman. Why is her last name Chang? So we did some research for about 6 years, and we asked different people, how do you define common sense, and how often do you use it? And if you notice, older people are more inclined to use common sense based on that definition, while younger people, not so much. And I have many theories of why that is. I think a lot of it, a primary, is our dependency on technology. And so it lessens our commitment to look, see, touch, and taste if they're applicable, you know, obviously not telling anyone to lick somebody else, but, yeah. But I thought it was pretty fascinating to realize that that component of common sense is, within, that definition is waning. So yeah, most common sense is sight. Okay, so what does a librarian look like to you? I wanna have a little fun. What does a librarian look like to you?
Glasses, hair back in the bun, right?
Her.
Yeah.
And just so you know, she is retired, living her best life.
Yep.
I used to say Florida, but not anymore. But she's living somewhere, living her best life. This is what librarians look like now, among other.
Right.
So what does a trucker look like?
A guy, right? Beard, hat.
The tats, right?
Yep, yep,
Right?
just like him.
Right, right. This is what truckers are starting to look
Wow.
like now.
Definitely different.
Very, very.
Mhm.
Okay, so what does a president look like?
Historically, it's always a dude, yeah.
So yeah,
Yes,
but this is what presidents look like around the world.
that's great.
So again, our cultural lenses, what we perceive based on our own experiences, tend to dominate truth. And the truth is, things look like. So what does a president for a nonprofit look like?
Looks like you.
I'll take it. But historically,
Not sure, right.
Historically.
Probably a male, an older male.
maybe with some Birkenstocks or.
Probably, yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, with a brown bag.
Yep, yep, mhm.
Yeah. And what does a president for a for-profit look like?
White dude in the suit.
The white dude in a suit, right,
Yeah,
right.
In a suit and tie.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Mhm.
Right. Did you know all these are nonprofits?
No, I didn't know that.
Well, they have nonprofit arms and profit arms, probably.
Yes. But most people don't think
I would never
that they,
thought Google or NFL.
Yeah,
Never.
they have nonprofit arms, but they also
I
have
guess-
for-profit
I
arms.
didn't
they
know
have
that.
for-profit arms, right,
Hmm.
right. Most people, when you see any of these, they think it's for-profit.
Yeah.
And it is. And most people don't think that you can have both, which is a goal of thick descriptions, is to have a for and a non. Okay, so, tools. As an entrepreneur, what do you value? What's important to you? Besides to stay in business.
Yeah, integrity.
Okay.
Quality people. Making an impact.
Does your team know that?
I hope so.
Fair. Fair. What about you, Julie?
That's what I was thinking too. Quality. I want to. I would want to get my name out, but I want to make sure it's for a good reason. As a person that is responsible, depending, or puts out a good product. And I would want to make sure that my team was on the same page with me, so they definitely would know. And I think this team does.
Good.
The team that we're in.
Good. Good. I would ask, when you say quality, what does that mean? Because that's a loaded word.
Quality in the services we deliver, or services or products, and ideally we would have quality team members as well.
What about you? What does quality mean?
I guess it's more, I understand that is kind of a weird word. I think it's more of what we put out. Like maybe I don't make a product, but my services or what I offer are going to be accurate. So I guess it's not quality, maybe it's accuracy, making sure that I don't know why I wanna say fine point, and making sure that we can narrow down what the issue is, but even here, making sure that when people leave, they have good experience and they have good thoughts of us, and be a well-known type of establishment too. So that people know, hey, I know where to go, or I know who to help you with your accounting, or I know where you can go get a good beer. So I guess, they could have different, depends on your business.
Right. And it
So-
definitely sounds as though you're comfortable with having those conversations to find out.
Right. Communicating is very important, I think, for entrepreneurs. And
Yes, it
their
is.
employees or.
Yes, it is.
Mhm.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And what are the characteristics of an entrepreneur?
I'd say usually they're highly educated, not necessarily formally. Could
Like
be
degrees, right?
Yeah, it could be just usually bright people, usually people that are willing to be bold. You're not generally going to see very meek people in that role. It's just unless your product is like water or something, something that's something
Right.
that was like a
Right.
requirement to live. I just don't see certain types of folks being able to be in that role. I personally feel like service-oriented leadership is kind of a necessity to being an entrepreneur. I mean, there are probably plenty of entrepreneurs out there that are not like that and do just fine. Back to earlier, I mentioned integrity. Same kind of thing. It's a value, but it's also a characteristic.
Agreed.
You're not going to survive very long if you lack integrity.
Agreed.
That sort of thing.
Especially here in Oklahoma, because it seems like everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time. The different circles, there's one or two people that connect you to.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? What are
I think they need to, motivated. It doesn't say what are the characteristics of a good entrepreneur. But
fair? The
I feel like
assumption
it's
is
the
that they're
same.
good.
You're right, motivated, I think they need, responsible, reliable. And then right there at the very end, I had something else too, I was just thinking about when you said, they need to be a good networker. Because I feel like it doesn't matter if it's a profit or nonprofit. In this day and age, I can see it, you have to be able to network, whether it's within your type of business or just with other business owners, because I
Agreed.
see that that's the best way to get your name out there, to get business, other business, so. And I see people here, they don't want to necessarily, or they even say, I don't like doing it, but it's what, I hate to say it, but it's good for your business and for you, especially if you're starting out,
Agreed.
so.
Agreed. You said earlier about water. I remember life before bottled water, and I remember when that phase really began to pick up. And I was one of those naysayers. It's like, you cannot monetize a natural resource, but we monetize electricity, we monetize other things, and here we are almost over 30 years later, and bottled water is a thing.
Well, it's not just that, but there's even a stigma. There's relatively speaking, the U.S. has safe drinking water by global standards. In most scenarios, you're not going to. Obviously there are localized exceptions,
Right.
that sort of thing, but you're not usually going to have issues by drinking the tap water. But so many folks are like, even in Oklahoma City here, in other cities, they will they refuse to drink tap water. It doesn't matter. You could test it in front of them. Their belief is it's got to be bottled water, even though they probably don't realize that the majority of bottled water is municipally sourced, meaning
tap
they're
water.
getting it's tap
Right.
water. They're
Right.
paying for someone else's tap water.
Right. Right.
You know, most of it's not spring water. Some of it is, but
Right.
you know, but there's a stigma now that for some reason if you buy it, it's better, even though that may or may not be the
Cultural
case.
lenses,
Yeah,
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so this is a statement from Corey Walker. He said, an entrepreneur is always looking for ways to improve and grow their business. A business owner commonly is okay with the status quo. I also think that entrepreneurs are problem solvers.
I agree with that.
That sounds good, yeah.
And I really like that.
They really are problem solvers.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you have to be.
Uh-huh,
Mhm.
uh-huh. Regardless if it's, making money now or making money in time.
Right.
And that's it.